Welcome to the Healers Café, conversations on health and healing with Manon Bolliger, a retired and deregistered naturopathic physician with 30 plus years of experience. Here you will discover engaging and informative conversations between experienced healers, covering all aspects of healing, the personal journey, the journey of the practitioner, and the amazing possibilities for our own body and spirit.
All right.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to the Healers Café. And today I'm with Dr. Mary Sanders. And she has a background as a chiropractor, doing positive psychology and also using energy medicine. So with a sort of a special interest in the body wisdom through chakras. So I thought that this would be a perfect discussion for today. But before we go there, how did you get into the field? Like what were the telltale signs, whether it's chiropractic or what you're currently doing with your, I think it's like 25 years now that you've been self-employed businesswoman and consultant. So you're doing a lot with all these tools. So if you could sort of bring us to the present, like how did you get to this? That would be awesome.
Yes, I'm happy to start there. That's it's my honor to share my story because I would like to say, Dr. M, that it was a linear process and that I was in control 100% of the time. But we all know that that's not how it works. But before I share my story, Dr. M, I just want to give a shout out to you and express a tremendous amount of gratitude for all the energy that you've put forth over the years to help support others, not only in practitioners in training, the Bowen technique and incorporating and facilitating all of your years of 30 plus years in naturopathy. And I just know that that takes a tremendous amount of dedication and commitment. So thank you for being you, and thank you for being the host of today's show.
Oh, well, thank you. I realize in doing my own show, I'm so fascinated with other people that I haven't actually put a lot about me in the show. So some people say, well, who are you? And it's very interesting. I had this dream yesterday that I needed to do an interview about me. And then here you are basically doing that. So thank you.
Yes, no, I have to share with you. I think I've done over 45 interviews on my podcast, Energy Medicine, and it has been requested that I do a solo cast, just because people are getting snippets of my story, but they never hear the complete thing. So maybe what we should do is I should interview you on your own podcast, and then I'll invite you to interview me on my podcast. That sounds like a great idea.
Let's do it.
Okay.
For me, it's just sitting there and going, oh, blah, blah, blah. It's in discussion that everything comes up, right? I mean, that's how I function. So
yeah,
you got
so true.
Let's do it.
So true. Okay, so here's my story, Dr. M, and I'm sticking to it, okay? I was born hearing impaired, and my hearing capacity is about 50% as to what a normal person would hear. And I went undiagnosed until the age of 3. And I remember living on this physical plane, but also being very connected to the spiritual realm. And I knew it. I absolutely knew it. And then at some point in time, I got diagnosed, and I had to make like this conscious choice to be here on this physical plane and to operate within the dynamics of my family. So to make a long story short, I kind of desensitized my connection to the spiritual realm. And over time, and I'm talking about, I had some spontaneous downloads when I was a teenager, and in my young adulthood, I was starting to connect with more information. But to make a long story short, I intuitively knew that I was placed on this earth to have my hands on physical bodies. And so I loved touching people. I loved touching my parents, anybody that ever wanted a back rub, got a back rubbed or a foot massage. And I can remember somebody saying to my dad, she's going to grow up and be a masseuse. Now, this was, let's say, almost more than 50 years ago. And at that time, it took a negative connotation from my father. So he was like, no, she's not. No, she's not. So, but I never lost that love and that desire to have my hands on patients. So I did mainstream school. I went and got my undergraduate degree in chemistry and zoology. Naturally, I was just gravitated into becoming a chiropractor. So I went into chiropractic school, and then all of a sudden people were talking about innate intelligence, allowing the body to heal from above, down, inside out, and being able to perceive and receive information from the hands. It became glorious for me. For the first time, I felt like I was in my element, and I felt understood. And I got to have my hands on physical bodies. So then what ended up happening is I graduated at a very young age. I was 25 years old. And then I went immediately into being self-employed. And if you know, I'm sure going to a naturopathic school, it's no different. You learn your trade, you learn the artistic element of what it is that you do, but not necessarily the business components on how to run a business. Correct. So through the School of Hard Knocks of trials and error, I developed a pretty successful practice, one that I wanted to multiply and have a satellite and to grow and to build and to expand. And somewhere in that process, Dr. M, I started to lose my desire and my understanding of connecting with people, and I got stuck into a business model. Okay. But what was happening is that energetically, I went on autopilot, and I did not know what was happening at the time. But what I was doing was receiving clairsentient information through my second chakra. And clairsentience is essentially picking up emotional information or energetic information from an environment or a person. And then what would happen is that I could also, through psychometry, which is essentially running information through my hands, I was also receiving information. So even though I was seeing a high volume of patients, I raised my frequency, and I didn't realize what I was doing, but the frequency was what carried me from patient to patient. And then it became like I would put my hands on people, and people would start saying, how did you know? And I don't know how I know, I just know. And so that's what gave me a blessing, if you will, that I kind of went unconscious in the work that I was doing. And then I kind of had to step aside and realize what was happening.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, Dr. M, I will be honest, I went through a traumatic burnout where I had to attend to my own physical needs. I was giving and holding so much energy for other people that I forgot to take care of my own energy system. Yeah. And I can share this, hindsight's always 20/20, but when I was in the middle of it, I could not see that. So I went through extreme exhaustion, adrenal exhaustion. I was literally flatlined for at least 18 months. So what ended up happening is that, as you well know, if the physical body gets compromised, the emotional body is guaranteed to follow, and then also the energetic body. Yeah. And so my husband sat me down, and he said, listen, I have to share with you, I'm really concerned about your well-being and our health, the integrity of our marriage. He's like, so with all of that said, are we both willing to compromise and to make some changes? And then he's like, oh, by the way, how would you consider leaving your practices and moving to Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam? And so he was hired by an international school company, and I was, we decided jointly that it was time for me to leave the practices. So we sold everything. We sold everything, and then I ended up on the other side of the world, and I went through a huge identity crisis. I had no idea who I was, what I stood for, what my purpose was. Why was I even on this planet? Right? So I did what any logical person would do. I ran away from Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, and I went to Bali, Indonesia to finally get my YTT, my yoga teacher's training. And I had been practicing yoga since I was maybe 20 years old. So yoga was not new to me, but I finally had the time to dive into the science and the philosophy and the asanas and the pranayama. And so I did that. And during that month, I started to come back to self. And then I came back to Vietnam and I got heavy into meditation. I had time. I had time for the first time in my life. I was like, what am I going to do with myself? I might as well sit and listen, right? So that's what I did. And some really amazing things started to happen, Dr. M. I was like, wow, 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 wow. Okay, so wait a minute. I finally woke up one morning and I'm like, I know the human body incredibly well from the neck on down. And then I'm like, something really interesting is happening in my brain while I am learning how to meditate. And so that's what prompted me to go study positive psychology with Dr. Talbin Shahar. And because I knew he was going to talk about the science and the neuroscience behind meditation. So where it would appeal my analytical brain, right, which I still needed to feed that frontal lobe of my brain. And then I was able to fully surrender into my meditation and just allow the magic to happen. So then, So then, the journey was, and I will wrap up in just a moment, but the next part is kind of important in that my husband and I decided that we were going to incorporate some of the tools of positive psychology and create an online learning platform for teachers, right? So my job was to educate the science behind positive psychology, mindfulness, meditation, yoga, breathing, and so that these tools could be embodied by the teachers and they could be role models for the students in the classroom. So something really amazing happened, which I didn't see coming, totally blindsided me, in that as fast as I was making content, it was being translated into Spanish. And so it took off in Latin America. Our program did, primarily in Lima, Peru, and Bogota, Colombia, and a couple of other places. And so to make a long story short, I'm like, this is phenomenal, right? But this is still not my calling, right? This is still not my purpose. A couple things happened during that time span. My mother passed, and then my sister passed. And so to make a long story short, I was compelled to bring it back to, okay, now I understand the human body, neck on down. Now I understand a little bit more of what's happening between the ears. But now what's really happening in the energetic sphere surrounding the physical body? And that's what prompted me to go study in Sausalito, California at the Academy of Intuition Medicine with Dr. Francesca McCartney. Okay. So then Francesca blows my mind and says, okay, intuition, let's talk about intuition. It's above and beyond the 5 typical senses that we operate from. And if we allow ourselves to expand and to receive information from the additional senses, then we'll be able to better understand the subtleties of the energetic system in relation to self and in relation to others.
So did you find that you had come at that point full circle, that what you knew was now taught to you in terms that you understood it at another level, but it's similar to what you had known all along? Is that kind of the experience? Or
Absolutely. I mean, Dr. M, like I said at the beginning, I wish my journey was linear, but it was not. It was completely, I don't know, it's easier to conceptualize as far as the analytical brain, but it really was holographic. It really was circular and multidimensional. And so that's what allowed me to truly step into my gifts and allow the essence to come forth and to be of support for other people in their discovery of their own life force energy and how they can heal themselves. Right? Because you and I are all about empowerment. How can we heal ourselves opposed to the disempowerment of handing over that energy to somebody else's responsibility?
Right.
So that's my honor as a medical intuitive. That's what I get to do these days. I mean, I still have a small kind of boutique-y place where I get my hands on patients half the time, and then I hold space energetically the other half of the time.
Because I was going to ask you, how do you work that? Like, are you still, do you still do chiropractic at this point?
Yes.
Okay. So, and is the way you do it different than how you learned it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For example, the first thing when a patient lays down on my table, I use a Tibetan sound bowl, and I use that, and I say, okay, we're just going to get some low-hanging fruit. Let's just synchronize the energy field, and then I always gift back the energy to the patient that I'm working on, meaning it is my honor to be of service, and the service is to them and to their spirit to be at their highest good. So maybe, just maybe that day they need a skeletal alignment. Okay, great, I can do that. Maybe that day they need some more emotional support. Great, I can do that. Maybe on some subconscious level, they need energetic support. I'm happy to be of service.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it's coming from the I am of service. I have the gifts in that sense to help at whatever level. And then if they're on your table, then you'll be guided to go wherever it is that they need through your training. And do you find that that patients know what they need, or find ways of this is really the exploration of intuition, because it's a subject I find, fascinating. And also, of course, that I'm, I call myself highly intuitive, and I feel I am, but I have not done any of the rationalizations of why the intuition is there. So I don't have the satisfaction in the brain yet. But I have the experience in my experience, But my question is to you, do you find, when you're reading what people need in that sense, do they know what they need?
Sometimes.
Okay.
And so I always ask, so you deal with people in pain, just like I deal with people in pain. And I always ask them intuitively, why is this happening?
Right. Okay.
Then I sit back and I listen.
Yeah.
Okay? 9 times out of 10, they have some understanding as to why they're carrying or choosing to have this pain pattern. Okay. Then the second thing I do is I say, well, how do you like to be treated? And then some people are like, what do you mean? I don't know. I've never been on your table. And I say, that's legitimate, but how do you like to be treated? I mean, you live in your body. I don't. Do you like a firm touch? Do you like a light touch? Do you, do you want to hear bones pop? Do you not want to hear bones pop? I mean, I give them, like these options of being able to identify, just to empower them to be able to say, okay, I'm here and I get to be a facilitator, right? I'm not healing, I'm facilitating. So I get to hear and listen and intuit what they are saying as far as A, what they want, and B, what they need, what they like.
And then how do you tie in the chakras? Like, where does that come in to this whole picture?
Yeah, Dr. M, I really appreciate you asking me this. So I am going to answer, and I'll do a little bit of chakra anatomy for you and the listeners so that you can get a better understanding. But so my philosophy is that we are born into this world with a blueprint that is an expression of self, as perfect as that is for our individual essence, right? So we make this agreement to be on this physical plane. And so we choose to come in and embody a physical body that happens to have all the bones, muscles, nerves, ligaments, tendons, all the brain, the lungs, everything that comprises the physical body, as well as the energetic system that runs within the physical body, not only meridians, but also chakras as well. And then surrounding our physical body, we have layers, multiple layers that represent or are in alignment with different themes as they correspond to the chakras, and they protect us like layers of an onion. But what ends up happening is that as we are engaging in our environment, if our energy system is not intact, if it's not well delineated and contained, if we don't demonstrate and come from a place of sacred space and boundaries, then energy can come through and perforate into the individual layers. And over time, you may get holes, or you may get perforations, or you may get tears within those energy layers surrounding the physical body. Over time, it can come into an individual energy center, a vortex of energy, which is responsible for receiving and assimilating information coming in through the environment, and that's known as a chakra. And so the chakra then gets intimately connected to an endocrine gland. There are nerve fibers that exit out, or that travel away from the endocrine gland into the central nervous system via the spine. And it travels the information up into the brain, where then there are neuropeptides that are responsible and can be triggered, which give us an emotional response to the individual, the environment over long periods. Okay? But by the time it compromises our physical being, our physical body, our body is the most dense energy system that we're dealing with. So it has taken time and repetition of that energy infiltrating into our biofield or our auric field before it gets into the energy system. Okay, so with that understanding, I'll talk about the 7 lower chakras. Okay. Now, I realize that the majority of the listeners are just getting an auditory, you're just listening to this podcast. So I'll do my best to explain the visual that I have available to us today. And I will, I've got videos, that outline all of this, and I can, shed some light on this. So we're going to talk about the 7 lower chakras. And what I'm going to do for the audience is I'm going to hold up a common kitchen utensil. Okay, now I'd like to take credit for these props that I'm going to show you, but I can't. Dr. Francesca McCartney showed these visuals, and I've been taught chakras by so many instructors over the years that this was the first visual that made sense, and this is what I use to educate my patients as well. So I am looking at a funnel, a kitchen funnel that you would use to take perhaps a liquid or a spice, with a wide mouth to it and a narrow funnel and a narrow aperture in which the liquid passes through. And so there are 7 major chakras. The first one located deep within the pelvis, right above the pubic symphysis. And for those listeners, the pubic symphysis are where the bottom 2 bones come together at the pelvic bowl. And if you're a woman and you've ever given birth, that's what engages and opens and separates as you prepare to birth a baby through the vaginal canal. So right above the pubic symphysis is the space in which the first chakra sits and resides. Okay. Now, by the time that the chakra gets to be about an inch away from the physical body, it's about 3 inches in diameter. Okay. So it is receiving the information coming through the environment, penetrating through the biofield, and it gets caught in this funnel. And I like to think of the funnel kind of like a washing machine, because there's a spin, okay? And each chakra has the rate of the spin is different. So the first chakra is the slowest and most intimate chakra that resonates closest to the frequency of the earth. So this is where we gravitate for safety, for security. This is where we get the nurturance that Mother Earth is really supporting us. And we know, and you know, that the energy of the earth is measurable. So we know that 7.8 hertz is what's being circulated within the energy field of the first chakra. The second one is located just below the belly button, just below the umbilical cord. And again, that's going to be a center in which it's conception, it's for creation. It's most intimately related to the ovaries in women and the testes in men. I should probably go back and say the first chakra is most intimately connected with the adrenal system. Okay. And in my own personal story, I'll come back and relate how this all got messed up. So first chakra around the pubic symphysis, the adrenal system. The lumbosacral nerve plexus is what innervates and exits out of the central nervous system at that area.
What would your life be like if you were pain-free? If you were one of the millions who suffer from chronic pain, the thought of just one day without it may seem impossible. This is often because conventional medicine tends to fall short in the treatment of pain, opting to prescribe pills or recommend surgery rather than getting to the root cause of the problem. But if you are suffering with emotional or physical pain, there is hope. Join the founder and CEO of Bowen College, Manon Bolliger, live online for your body-mind reboot. Learn how to listen to your symptoms and get to the root cause of your pain. Plus, be trained in basic Bowen therapy moves so that you can reboot your body for optimal health. You don't have to live in pain. You can heal. Stop the pain pill cycle by visiting www.yourbodymindreboot.com to learn more and to register.
So I'm back to the first chakra. So when you think about the first chakra, you think about anything that controls the nerve intervention from the butt, thighs, knees, ankles, and feet. So if somebody comes to you with plantar fasciitis, which is just essentially pain and discomfort in the arches of the soles of the feet. If somebody comes to you with varicosities, in the legs, or knee pain, or hip pain, or hemorrhoids. Those are all physical symptoms that are most intimately connected to the first chakra, okay? Yep. So you get a nerve plexus, you get an endocrine gland, a central theme surrounding the individual chakra. Okay. And there's emotional stuff that is all tied in there today, but for the sake of simplicity, I'll just talk about those three things within the chakra anatomy. So then we started to talk about the second chakra, located just below the belly button. And that is most intimately connected into the endocrine system of the ovaries in the women and testes within the men. So you can think about the ovaries are used for creation, for, releasing the egg and developing another human spirit. So, but within that, there's the element of creativity, period. So creativity is to how you get to choose to express your essence authentically comes from that area. Okay. So the lumbar nerve plexus, which exits out of the low back, is the governing area. So then you may see physical symptoms involving the lower intestines. So the descending colon, the sigmoid colon, you may see appendix. You may also see the bladder and the uterus. Those type of viscera, those kind of physical symptoms are associated with the second chakra. I want to go ahead. Ask.
What about the kidney, or the like the chi, as in the essence, the yin aspect of it? Is that second chakra? Because I was thinking more the first one is like fight and flight, potentially with the adrenals, but I'm just trying to compare to the Chinese system a little bit and the meridians. Is there an association like that, or not really in that same way?
I will say that not necessarily as far as yin and yang, like hollow versus solid, or an upward or a downward energy. But what I will say specifically to the kidneys is that it shows up in two areas, and that being the third chakra, which I'll talk about in a moment, and also the first, because of again the central nervous system.
All right.
But I want to go back to a really, really important thing, because I know a lot of practitioners that are in the healing arts are listening to this podcast, and that is the second chakra is most intimately connected to the clairsentience, to where you receive and hold information from other people. So it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon for healers, when they have a certain frequency and they are holding space for another person, it is not uncommon for those healers to hold that energy within their second chakra. Okay. Not uncommon. So that's an area to be aware of, I guess I should say. So the third chakra is located just below the tip of the upper abdomen, below the tip of the xiphoid on the sternum and the soft part of the upper abdomen. And this is most intimately connected into the endocrine system of the pancreas. Okay. And so the enteric nervous system governs over this area. Okay. And a lot of times you will see that this area is of an expression of sovereignty or control or the essence of I am individuated. So that comes from the solar plexus, the power center within the upper abdomen. Okay, so symptoms that you may see, you talked about the kidney, maybe the kidney shows up, maybe it's related more to blood sugar imbalances, the pancreas, or maybe there's liver dysfunction, gallbladder stuff, splenic issues. Those show up within the third chakra. Okay. The fourth chakra, which is located in the center of the sternum, the breastbone, is most intimately connected into the thymus. Okay, and so within that space, you can see the thymus is an underactive gland, as you know, is really responsible for immunity when kids are developing up to 18 and then kind of becomes not non-existent or not even underdeveloped. It's there, but it's intimately connected with the heart chakra. Okay, I like the heart chakra for a couple of different reasons. The heart chakra has its own toric field, so has a lot of energy and expansion front and back. Okay, so some of the issues that you may see when you start to uncover issues within that energy center has to do with self-love and forgiveness and compassion for self and for others. Okay. Now I'm just going to make a comparison that if somebody's primarily coming from the space of their second chakra, again, a lesson for those practitioners listening, they have a tendency of being too blown open and too empathetic that they are willing to take other people's energies on. But really, when we come from a heart space and we're holding space for those that may be in transition or pain, we can hold compassion for them, but we don't take it on energetically. Okay, so there's a difference between being compassionate and being empathetic. Mm-hmm. So you can start going into the area of the neck, and right about their fifth cervical vertebra, right around the area of the thyroid is where the fifth chakra is. Now, the fifth chakra is so fascinating to me because it's a small surface area. If you really think about the circumference of your neck in relation to your belly or your waist, there's a lot of energy that gets compressed within that throat. And as you well know, there's so many imbalances from the endocrine perspective of the thyroid, whether people are underactive, hypothyroidism, or if they have Hashimoto's or hyperthyroidism, that shows up with an under or an over expression or the ability to authentically express their creativity, their voice, how they show up in this world, the words that they choose. And expression, as you well know, can come out in the form of dance, in the form of movement, in the form of writing, in the form of art. And expression takes on so many different connotations, but it really does stem from the ability to be able to open that fifth chakra. And that comes from the cervical nerve plexus, the nerves that exit out of the neck. So that controls the shoulders, elbows, arms, wrist, and hands. Okay. So clinicians, if you're listening to me and you're like, oh, well, you mean that patient that I'm treating for elbow pain might be having issues with their neck in relation to their expression? That's exactly what I'm saying. The people with carpal tunnel issues, shoulder issues, possibly may even breast cancer. So we get to look at these energy systems integratively. So we know that there is a physical, emotional, and energetic or spiritual component. I think the next one, Dr. M, you're going to resonate with, and that is the sixth chakra. And that's located just above the eyebrows in the center of the forehead. And this energy center is most intimately connected with, you will think about the the pineal gland is the endocrine gland that's most intimately responsible, because this is all about clear vision. How we can see the truth, how we can see energy, how we can see illness within another person. We don't know how we see it, we just see it. And so the reason that the pineal, and I love the pituitary, I keep saying pineal, that's the next one. The pituitary is the next one. The pineal is number 6. The pineal gland is literally about the size of your pinky, right? Your pinky nail. And it looks like a little pine cone. So you think about the pine cone and you think about how much surface area is in this tiny little endocrine gland. And this endocrine gland is responsible for producing the rods and the cones that we still have within our physical eyeballs. And it's responsible for our melatonin and a branch of the tryptophan family. So when we are looking at opening and receiving information from an intuitive sense, as far as clairvoyance within the 6th chakra, that is intimately connected with a higher level of consciousness as it relates to the pineal gland. Love this one. Then you get to tap up into the space of the 7th. And that, again, is your pituitary. And as you know, that governs over all of your other endocrine systems, right? And so you get the central nervous system carrying that information, or the meridian system carrying that information from the production of the cerebral spinal fluid through the ventricles of the brain, and then down through the central nervous system out to all the other endocrine systems.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful system.
Yeah. Well, I like how you've related it, and I'm wondering too, in your practice experience, when I practice, because I'm no longer a practicing naturopath, so I have to say I'm officially deregistered. So, because you said doctor, so I have to clarify that. But what I was going to say, a lot of the thyroid problems are masked adrenal problems. In other words, missed adrenal problems, right? And then, some of the work that I do, I rebalance in the body the trauma often lived by the adrenal glands, and then the voice and the idea of the thyroid comes back, emotionally and physically, right? Have you noticed that in that correlation?
I have, because you are coupling various different endocrine systems. It's not unlike looking at the HPA axis, so you're coupling them together, and I see the same thing. So those that were kind of listening were maybe thinking about the interrelationship between the 2nd chakra and the 5th chakra.
Right.
Or maybe the relationship between the 1st and the 6th, or the 1st and the 3rd. There are themes. And I guess what I want to present the idea to the listeners is that the energy system always follows our thoughts and our intentions. And so if we can envision, I'm going to use another visual for those that are listening, and that is a traditional vegetable steamer that you might find in your kitchen. And the vegetable steamer has the ability, how it's a metal, and you put it down into your basket, and then you open it up, and then you put all of your vegetables in there, and then you allow the vegetables to steam. So I like to refer to the chakra, the front of the chakra on top of the funnel, as having an aperture. So you've got a spin, right? And then you, as an individual, a spirit inhabiting your human home, can set the intention, depending upon your environment, to open an aperture or to close down an aperture. And many of the dysregulations that you're talking about, Dr. M, when you talk about the thyroid and the adrenals, means that perhaps maybe one has been overextended and stuck too far open, consequently, and it's operating at double overtime, and then the other one is a little bit more shut down. So we talk about healthy apertures in various different environments. If you're a treating practitioner, what does it look like sitting knee to knee in a consultation? What should be open, what should be closed? When you are sitting at a family dynamic, and I'm just only because it's the end of October when we're recording this, maybe it's Thanksgiving dinner and you have some really dysfunctional family dynamics happening around the table, and you can monitor your energy system so that you don't take this on. So that's our given right. If we intellectually know this, then we can run our system depending upon where and what and how, what kind of an environment we're in.
Now, we're actually running out of time, so I don't want to take too many more questions. But I wanted you to, do you actually teach this now? Like, can practitioners join a training or something that you offer at this point?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful that you have asked this, but I'm going to be in full transparency. I am taking my current training, which is 5 months long, and I'm breaking it down into smaller modules that is more easily digestible. So on my website, which is www.drmarysanders.com, you will find the various different offerings that I have and the services that are available.
Great. And last question for you. This is an overall question, though. We talk about the Great Awakening. I'm sure you've heard the term around these days. Do you feel that energetically, whether it's because we're going into the season of Aquarius, or there's many, theories of why that is, but do you feel that more and more people are honing into their intuition and coming back into this state of, I would say it's like a sovereign trust of self, of the innate healing of what is actually possible without pharmaceuticals and all the rest? Do you feel that?
Yes, I do. I definitely feel that shift, Dr. M. I'm in a complete state of awe as to the current environment of today's geopolitical issues involving religion. And I'm in awe. And at some cellular level, I'm incredibly saddened by the violence that is happening. And I feel somewhat, I know I have to, it creates the environment for individuals to come back into self. And again, through their self, do the regulation to increase their levels of consciousness in order to hold space for all that is happening within this world. And really, that's the most important thing that we can do, is to come back to self and to trust self and listen to the information that you are receiving, because I believe everyone that is listening is primed, is ready, is willing to receive information if they just choose to expand their consciousness and to open to the information. It's available to everyone. It's accessible to everyone.
Okay, and very last question, which probably won't make it to YouTube, but I have Rumble as well. So do you feel that now that there's a lot of more information seeping out, there's just no way of stopping it, about the last 3 years that people have experienced, and the so-called choices, with a high level of propaganda? The word choice is a tricky one to use, though ultimately it's a choice, as in it's part of your life path. But do you feel that even if, medical people can't explain or can't find the natural or unnatural drug to take to stop some of the impact of the bioweapon that we have been subjected to, do you feel that the body, the person, the larger aspect of us is capable of overcoming this?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Yeah. Me too. That just was curious.
Yeah, yes, I do. And Dr. M, you were so eloquent in how you asked the question. I thought it was beautifully stated. But the one thing that I will say with 100% certainty is that the human body, the human body never, ever ceases to amaze me. How we were so beautifully engineered is beyond my comprehension. Beyond my comprehension. And then when I tap into the energetic system, and I'm talking about stuff that has yet to be proven, okay? Now, this is where, as practitioners, we make and bridge that gap where you can sit there and say, experientially, I know this to be true. I know the human body has this capacity because you've seen it happen within your practice, as I have as well. And so, but yet science may be just lagging a little bit in being able to prove it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think, we've lived that with things that, that like that nerve regeneration, which was oh, no, the body can't do that. And then, oh, yes, it can,
Yeah.
And then the many things that are named something derogatory, like junk DNA, just because no one understands what the other parts do. So I very much believe that the body, if you see it, and we call this hearsay. If it had to go to courts, it's hearsay because it's not a so-called research. But I think that too has to change, is that if you have a practitioner who sees over and over something, from the perspective of a patient, they don't need to go to court. They just need to get better.
Right.
And let it be figured out later how it happened. So, like, in other words, there's so much we don't know. And to relax into that, and just be in awe like you are, I love the way you say that. It's like the body never stops to amaze you. And same with me. I mean,
yeah.
It's,
Dr. M, I'm going to put a multifaceted spin on this conversation in that as practitioners, chances are this is not our first experience holding space for healing and transformation. So we may be carrying information stored within our DNA or within ourselves that we know certain things, right? Because we've had generations or lifetimes in which we've been in this kind of capacity of knowing how the body is going to respond and how the energetic system will perceive the information. So it's not new to us.
no.
It's not new to us, but we live in a, let's have a hardcore science proven type society. So I can be in that state of unknown comfortably because I've been doing this now for almost 30 years. Next August will be 30 years for me, as you have 30 plus years underneath your belt. I'm okay going toe to toe with somebody, that may have that hardcore science and being able to say, well, my experience said this.
Okay, well, let's leave with those beautiful words. And thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation.
Truthfully and sincerely, the honor has been mine. Thank you so much, listeners.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us at the Healers Café with Manon Bolliger. Continue your healing journey by visiting thehealerscafe.com and her website, and discover how to listen to your body and reboot for optimal health.